The darkest woods are still ahead. The wheels of the, let's say, closed carriage tore through the rich dirt of the forest trail. Okay, let me spell rich correctly. It's always good to get off to a good start and spell all the words in the first sentence correctly, just for fun sometimes, I think. All right. Spikes and blades pointed out from the metal rims of the oaken, is that a word? I guess so. The oaken wheels, and spun in a blur like the deadly wheels of heathen chariots. All right. So we spent some time on the wheels. I don't know if that's the best way to start, but maybe we'll adjust that around in the edits. All right. High above on the rocker bench, perched on the front of the ebony conveyance, two rotten bodies showing more bone than clinging flesh held the reins of the horses. One undead driver steered the panicked, I already said horses, panicked animals through the winding bends of this cursed trail. The others snapped an impossibly long whip at the horses, and the creatures attacking from all sides out of the trees. Inside the carriage, where trunks, baggage, and clothes spilled everywhere as the vehicle, I don't know if you call it a vehicle if it's not powered, but I'm going to do it anyway, as the vehicle tilted up on one side before crashing down on the other. Okay, I don't think that sentence works, but I'm going to adjust it here anyway. Inside the carriage, I'm going to just change these to the subjects. Inside the carriage, Trunks, baggage, and clothes spilled everywhere as the vehicle tilted up on one side and crashed down the other. In the midst of this clutter, Scallon questioned all of his life's choices that led him to bouncing off the thin walls of the cabin. Instead of guarding his heads from the impacts that likely cost him degrees of intelligence and days off his life, he clutched a small box to his chest to protect it and its ancient contents. As his brain jostled inside his skull, the conscious thing inside the tiny box cried out into Scallion's mind for release. Something with claws and mangy skin, as pale as the hidden moon above the canopy of trees. Something with claws and mangy skin, as pale as the hidden moon above the canopy trees, latched onto the side of the carriage. The wooden panels groaned as the claws scraped for purchase, and the creature tried to climb on top. One of the necromantic corpse drivers attacked with its whip. Scallon, he's not a scallion. Scallon. I make up these names and then I got to put some effort into spelling them correctly. So let's see if we can keep going. One of the necromantic corpse drivers attacked with its whip. Scallon saw a lash of pink flesh, pink wound, open across the monster's bony side, and it fell away from the carriage. as they raced onward, he hoped that creature at least had given up or was too far behind to catch up. The young man hoped. But he doubted. Inside his head, the thing kept screaming. Scallon cried out loud at it. Hold on, let's get things in the right place. Be still, you incorporeal. Okay, spell this correct. Incorporeal thing. I can't even think. Alright, what good is your thinking, boy? The words echoed through his aching skull. If all you do is roll around waiting to die. All right. Here we go. Sorry, I had to get the italics in there. If all you do is roll around waiting to die. Okay. Scallon did not answer, but he closed his eyes, hugging that box against his body. The runes burned against his flesh in the runes, let's say the runes over its surface. The runes over its surface burned against his flesh in a most unpleasant fashion. Maybe he was waiting to die. Something with wings rustled against the outside of the hurtling carriage. After landing, its wings seemed to brush the trees on both sides. The whip cracked a few times. The monster perched above. pecked through the ceiling, raining splinters and sawdust onto Scallon's face and in his hair. Set me free, you coward. The voice of the thing in the box demanded within Scallon's mind. Alright, let me italicize the thing in the box's words, because they're more thoughts than actually spoken out loud in this case, I guess. Alright. The whip stopped, and something tore above with a rending. Okay, I think that's an E. Let me see if I can spell rending correctly. I can. I should get extra points just for that. Okay. The whip stopped and something tore above with a rending sound. It's probably a better word than sound, but I'll go with that. With a rending sound that seemed to go on too long. The wings scraped against the outside of the speeding carriage. The wings scraped against the outside of the speeding carriage in a way that sounded more like scales than wings. The entire cabin shook down hard against the axles as the monster above launched itself into the air with a deep whoop from its wings. As it, let's say, banked between the trees. As it banked between the trees, Scallon only saw it for 2 or 3 seconds tops. It looked to be covered. It looked to be covered with shaggy red fur, even over its wings. Until that moment, he would have guessed it was a small dragon. If this hairy abomination had a head, he didn't see it. If it had a name, he did not know it, even after his years as an apprentice to the purple mage. He did identify one of the undead drivers in the creature's talons. If the last driver... I'm going to make this a new paragraph, sorry. Alright. My computer sounds like it's about to take off. It must be using a lot of energy. Maybe I'm typing so great in this story that it has to process faster. If the last driver were taken next, the carriage would roll to a stop and Scallon would wait to be eaten by the monsters of this endless dark forest at their leisure. At their leisure, with a small kernel of dark humor in the back of his mind, he realized the purple mage would be saddened by the loss of the artifact in the box, but would suffer hardly a second thought for his apprentice Scallon. Your thoughts sicken me in their weakness. The thing from the box scolded. Alright, let me italicize the thing from the box's thoughts. Scallon actually laughed as more claws dug into the outside of the carriage with no spare driver to whip them away. He said out loud, "I'm sorry I disappoint a being such as yourself, but no one else succeeded in freeing you from that tomb, did they?" The thing laughed, and it felt like cold claws inside Scallon's head. The being, let's say entity, the entity growled within the young man's mind. The greatness to take a thing is only celebrated if you also possess the power to hold onto it. Alright, the mind would not use quotation marks, it is italicized, so let's keep this consistent. Alright, let's have Scallon talk back to him. Scallon said, "Perhaps your next benefactor will be better than me. I can save us both if you open the box." Okay. Scallon paused with that. The carriage bounded over roots and ruts in the trail as the wooden sides bent inward with whatever was climbing outside. How many demons promised such things to foolish boys desperate enough to believe them? I am no mere demon, you child. I am the eye of Nevalor. I am a god I'm a god. I don't know what I'm going to say here. I'm just going to leave it at that, and then maybe add more later on. No reason to wax poetic here. We're in the middle of a battle. Alright. Scallon tried to remind himself that his mind was an open passage to this thing. Gods bring damnation too. I care not for your worship or even your obedience, but you are out of options, and that is when mortals must turn to gods for salvation. Now or never. Decide if your life matters to you. Okay. I think that's good. We're going to have this kid go ahead and decide to let this thing out. Alright, so let's see what happens. Scallon did not so much make a decision as he didn't so much make a decision as he simply allowed his muscles to move with their fear. Light, a deeper purple than any magic his master had ever used, poured, radiated out of the open lid and washed over Scallon like a drowning wave. Even the creatures outside the carriage seemed to scream in fear. Excuse me. That was loud. I should get a cough button, shouldn't I? Even the creatures outside the carriage seemed to scream in fear. He dropped the box and held up his numb hands, surprised to discover he still possessed all his fingers. An object, the object, with edges too blurry to focus on, climbed up his leg like a giant spider. Scallon dared to try to swat the thing away, but his fingers, but the fingers he still couldn't feel. The fingers he still couldn't feel, either passed through it or around it, like it wasn't even there. Like it wasn't even there. Scallon wondered if the object really occupied, really even occupied the dimension he had always taken for reality. Something caught in one of the wheels. The carriage bounced so hard it was a wonder it didn't beat itself apart. The thing in the spokes and spikes cried out before it tumbled away. Plenty more crawled around the outside, compromising the structure. All right, the Eye of Maidens Allure continued up Scallon's body. Now he felt it under and through his skin. It ran up through his ribs with force, and he felt bones. So he felt and heard. He felt and heard bones crack. He screamed with the pain of it and realized he would not survive this choice. Relax, the thing said. You will host me for now, but I will leave you alive and well. Living in your body is no goal of mine. You aren't that important. Now let me save us. All right. Italicizing the monster's words. Relax, the thing said. And then all this insulting stuff he said about the poor boy. All right. Continuing on here. All right. It climbed up and inside Scallon's back. His shirt ripped open along his bulging spine. His left arm reached behind himself without his will. He tore away his cloak and realized he could see through his own eyes, but also saw strangely clearer behind his back with a purple hue over the world. the double images threatened to drive him mad, but things were out of his control now. Through the purple eye of Alor, he saw the arachnid shapes climbing over the outside. His shoulders broke and turned his shoulders, let's say his shoulders and elbows broke, turning his arms around backward. His head turned completely around on his neck like an owl. You'll be set right soon. Do not panic. Scallon panicked, but was powerless over his own mutating body. All right. Maidens of using Scallon's twisted form, kicked open the door to the carriage. He climbed up the outside of the racing conveyance like a spider himself. On top, the creatures turned on him. They lashed. Okay, I need to make that a separate paragraph, sorry. They lashed out with their sharp stingers. He could see the venom boiling inside their bodies. His hands on backwards grabbed the stingers and hurled the creatures away. As one sprung for his face, his jaw on his backward head unhinged, and he bit through the body of the thing. Scallon, trapped inside his own mind, a prisoner inside his deformed body, wished he was dead as he tasted the spider thing's guts. Malevolor spit out the dead creature. More pieces, let's say more hairy. Let this get this visceral. More hairy pieces fell from his lips as Malevolor spoke using Scallon's own throat, tongue, gritty teeth, and lips. Calm down. I will dilute the venom so it does not harm you, my host. The other spider things backed up a step. Perhaps they were not used to being eaten by humans foolish enough to race through this forest at night. The headless, furry, flying thing swooped down, and the headless, furry, flying thing swooped down and snatched up a few of the spiders for them. Malevolor crushed and discarded the others. Do I get my body back now? Scallon tried to say, but he had no command over his own mouth. Okay. Now the boys' words are in italics, and the monster things' words are spoken aloud. We've done a reversal here. Malevolor would have been better if I'd given that a shorter name, but fewer syllables maybe for writing purposes, but it makes a good entity's name, I suppose. Malevolor answered with Scallon's mouth. We are not to the most dangerous things these woods have to offer yet. All right, one of the rules of fairy tales is a rule of three. So anytime you're doing a children's story, this is not a children's story, obviously, or a fairy tale based thing, if you have 3 beats of something, then that falls into that pattern pretty well. So I'm going to have this creature say they're not even to the worst parts of the forest yet 3 times. So this would be the first of those. As if summoned, something spotted and enormous. Something spotted and enormous raced along the path to the left, to the side, let's say, to the side. Its body tore low limbs from the trunks. It blocked the view of much of the forest in that direction. The gigantic thing crossed the trail in front of them, but then paced them along the side. The undead driver held the reins and snapped the undead driver held the reins and snapped the horses onward without reaction to this new threat. Scallon couldn't tell his left from his right with his head on backward. Let's say anymore. Couldn't tell his left from his right anymore with his head on backward. Okay. Malevolor turned the head completely around 2 more times as he spied in every direction. Scallon screamed inside his head, "Stop that. You're going to twist my head clean off. Relax." His own voice answered. Okay, hold on. Let me italicize this. Okay. Relax, his own voice answered. I know what I'm doing. Scallon's backward arms raised, and Malevolor spoke in a language Scallon could not comprehend or remember once the words passed. Great power erupted from his fingers and laced up the side of the huge thing sliding alongside the trail. It gave a dull, rumbling roar. And veered deeper into the forest away from them. It did not even seem particularly hurt or angry, just annoyed and dissuaded. Now, can you put my body back right and give me back myself? We are not even halfway through our greatest tests yet, child. Nev-Alor declared. Alright. So we'll get to the third and final beat of this and see if our hero gets his body back in one piece. Something boomed. Then the sound and vibration. Then the sound and vibration repeated. Nev-Alor bent over so that Scallan's body perched on its hands and knees with his twisted head upside down. Is that really necessary? Stop whining and let me focus. Alright, let me italicize this poor kid's thoughts. The roving purple eye extended like a massive boil from Scallan's exposed back. It spied a severed arm still clutching the missing driver's whip. Oh, gross, Scallan thought. Alright, we're in the home stretch here on this particular story. Oh, gross, Scowlin thought. Okay, what's next? Malevolor. Pried open the dead fingers and took the whip as he stood up straight again. Dark things with dozens of arms leapt from tree top to tree top above them. Scowlin's Alright, hold on. Scowlin's body circled one way as his head turned the other. He no longer bothered to protest. He wasn't sure he wanted control of his body back after all this. You'll be better than new. You'll be better than new and back in control when we meet your master on the other side of these cursed woods. The things swung down toward the carriage. Malevolor still used magic, but cast it along the braid of the whip as he lashed the strange creatures. This went on for nearly an hour before they finally gave up. The horses started to slow more than once, but Malevolor cast more magic into them and they ran faster. Scowlin wondered if the animals would drop dead the moment this was all over. Malevolor did not answer either way as he watched the world from Scowlin's back in hues of purple. Now, Scowlin asked, Malevolor sighed and whispered. You have no idea what still lies ahead. Before this night will be through. Something hooted from deep in the trees. In the other direction, much closer, something that sounded inhuman, but also very much like laughter. Raked out through the night. Nevalor in Scallan's body stood ready for what was to come. All right.